you came all this way on the railroad?
Yeah. I left behind all those peoples.
Director Barry Jenkins has enjoyed a series of triumphs with his award-winning films Moonlight and If Beale Street Could Talk. Now he faces his biggest challenge, the Underground Railroad. It comes out on Amazon Prime today. It's a 10-episode series based on the novel by Colson Whitehead. It takes the audience through a journey out of America's slave trade. Eli Glasner is here to take us through this new series. Eli, always great to see you. Let's talk about this. It is a heavy topic, a Pulitzer Prize-winning novel. Let's talk about how Barry Jenkins approaches this very difficult material.
Deftly, carefully, with a lot of sensitivity. He did a lot of research, read testimonies, and it shows. We begin on a plantation in the South, Georgia, before the Civil War. It's actually on a Sunday, a day of rest. It's kind of almost a picnic atmosphere. We see the slave population. They're relaxing. They're having a communal meal. The sun is shining, and that sense of community is something that Jenkins really was interested in exploring. What he's called this collective act of parenting done under the most unimaginable circumstances. But the stark nature of their lives, the lack of value, becomes all too evident when you meet the plantation owner, this Southern aristocrat with a taste for Bible quoting and sadism. And this, John, is something that Jenkins really struggled with. How much do you show? Because he wants to honor the ancestors. At the same time, he didn't want to brutalize his audience. So there's been an interesting conversation right now about Black trauma and about using Black pain for entertainment. But one of the reasons that attracted Jenkins to television, his first series here, is that it gives the audience control. You're not trapped in a theater. You can step away, you can hit pause, and then come back. Now, the larger story begins and really revolves around Cora and Caesar, two slaves. Her mother was a runaway, so they're watching her carefully. Caesar has had enough of that place. He's heading north. When they make their break, they're pursued by Ridgway, Joel Edgerton playing a slave hunter who is surprisingly perceptive. Let's take a look.
Man lost my mom, then me. Ain't no way he ever given up on finding me.
There's anger in you. It'll fuel you, yes, but what's the worst kind of fuel?
I think part of this series is about bearing witness, and episode 1 does feature some brutal, difficult images. But the other part that attracted Jenkins to the material in Whitehead's novel is the idea of an escape from all of that. In an interview with the Rolling Stone, he talked about Afrofuturism and kind of asking the question, why do we use the language of science fiction to imagine these fantastical futures? Why not do that with our past? Take a look at what the director had to say.
Oh, if your personhood is so restricted, by this condition, then mentally, oh my God, you must be going to so many different places. And it's when I realized that there had to be this thread, this undercurrent of the show where we could actualize Cora's feelings. We could actualize these visions.
So the way of actualizing those visions in this alternative history, there is actually an underground railroad, a secret railroad that runs through America. And if Cora and Caesar can make it there, there's a literal light at the end of the tunnel.
There have been many films and series that have explored slavery in America. Other than, as you described, the Underground Railroad itself, what sets this one apart?
Just sumptuous visuals. Let's talk about episode 2, set in South Carolina. Take some inspiration from the color photography of Life magazine in the 1950s, the work of photographer Gordon Parks. Look at those beautiful colors. Look at the hue of the light, like an old roll of Kodachrome. It's also a masterclass in tone that looks like a beautiful setting. This is a town that embraces, educates the Black population, but there's a twisted cruelty to their Southern hospitality. This is Get Out meets The Twilight Zone. The third episode, we're thrown into North Carolina, a Puritan village, extreme in their devotion. Episode 5 in Tennessee is in this smoldering forest with this eerie, abstract quality, this kind of void that they're trapped in. And certainly one of the things running through this railroad is a tract of faith and spirituality, both the hope that keeps Cora trudging forward, but also the drive to demonize your fellow man.
Eli, it is a challenging subject. So what do you say to those who are thinking that it might be too challenging for them to watch?
Look, this is not a series that you're going to binge in a couple days. This is heavy material. It is rich. You need to kind of spend your time with it. You don't want to rush through. And it is not all darkness. There are moments of sweetness and light, even romance. There's an arc to this series. But personally, I find it remarkably inspiring when I'm watching something that clearly comes from someone with their own way of seeing. Jenkins, the director, is lyrical and poetic, epic and gothic, but he has this delirious sense of empathy. He wrings every morsel of humanity from his subjects, the defiance and drive of Cora, the sad sensitivity and twisted heart of Ridgway, the hunter, the passively perfect face of his young black assistant Homer. And he does this with stillness and patience. And in this series, there are these moments of portraiture where the characters are just looking at the camera, claiming their space, and he forces you to sit with those images. Now, even if you don't have Amazon Prime Video, there's an amazing example of this that you can watch for free, and it displays the other part that makes this series so magical, and that's the music of composer Nicholas Britell. So what he's done here, there's a video the director calls The Gaze, as in the black gaze. While they were filming, there were moments where Jenkins felt like he was looking at his ancestors. So they'd stop and just film the actors, the background actors, staring at the camera. And the result is what you're watching is this 50-minute abstract film of slaves and porters and teachers and blacksmiths and children saying, in effect, we were here and here we are again. And I think that is very much the soul of this series.
Remarkable. Thank you, Eli. Really appreciate it.
You're welcome.
CBC's Eli Glasner in Toronto.